Hi, I'm Ashton Biondo. I'm a normal girl living a normal life. Well, at least that's what it looks like, right? In reality, I was born with a congenital heart defect. My parents knew about my heart problems before I was even born. So, my parents took me to the U of M hospital in Ann Arbor and found the #1 cardiac surgeon in the U.S., Dr. Beauvais. And that's where this story starts. When I was born, I had a hole in my heart and a closed pulmonary valve. My first open heart surgery was right after birth to close the hole and put a stent in my pulmonary valve to open it up. Dr. Beauvais knew in the future I would have to have another surgery when I was full grown to replace the valve with an artificial valve, but not yet. July 7th, 2014. After 2 open heart surgeries, my final open heart surgery was to be performed. I was to get my artificial valve. This was going to be my biggest open heart surgery yet. I woke up in the ICU on July 7th, 2014, 5 hours post-surgery. I had felt like I had gotten run over by a massive bus. I had 3 chest tubes coming out of my body, 3 IVs in my hand and arms, 1 tube in my neck, and huge staples and stitches going down my sternum. My body felt so weak and sick. It took me 3 days to walk again and 7 days for them to take my chest tubes out. But I was still not eating and was uncontrollably vomiting. I could only eat ice and drink water. This went on for 13 days. I slowly but surely recovered, but after my last operation I had a heart murmur, so the doctors appointed me Nadolol and I have been on it ever since. The object I have chosen is the prescription medication Nadolol. It comes in an orange prescription medication container with a white top. Nadolol alone is a pale yellow round pill. It has a line running through the middle of it, dividing it right in half. On one half of the pill, it's imprinted with an M, and the other half is imprinted with the number 171. Nadolol medication is a non-selective beta-blocking agent. Although it seems like a simple medication, it has many purposes and uses for it. For instance, studies have shown that it reduces the heart rate and cardiac heart rate when at rest and when a person is exercising. Also, it lowers blood pressure when at rest and when a person is active. Nadolol not only has many purposes, but helps many different problems. For example, Nadolol's most general treatments are for hypertension, which has to do with high blood pressure, and angina, which is chest pain. For myself, Nadolol helps my heart murmur by slowing my heart rate down and relaxing its muscles. The idea of beta blockers can date back to over 100 years ago, but it wasn't until the early 1960s that Nadolol was created. Dr. James Black was working on a medication that could relieve the pain of angina, so he wanted to create a drug that would decrease the heart's requirement for oxygen. Finally, he had made his creation of Nadolol, and in April of 1963, his tests were proven to work and the prescription drug was launched. Not only did they discover it helped with angina, but it had many other uses. And now, since 1963, Nadolol has been a consistent medication that has been helping people around the world. The community and culture that my Nadolol represents are prescription medications. Although my Nadolol has improved my health, it is not fully covered by health insurance. Therefore, my parents have to pay the difference of what it does not cover. In America, many people run into this problem. Medications that are either not fully covered or not even covered at all are damaging Americans in many ways. People who can't afford medications are only getting sicker. In the article, almost 1 in 10 Americans can't afford medications, says CDC. It states nearly 1 in 10 American adults don't take their medications as prescribed because they can't afford to. The article describes how 7.8% of adults admit to not taking medication as recommended due to high costs. Patients are taking less medication, skipping doses, or delaying filling prescriptions. The article then goes into depth that those whose income is 139% of poverty level are least likely to take their medications as prescribed due to limited finances. Even 1.6% of adults have bought prescription drugs from other countries. Due to insurances not covering prescription medications, Americans are physically hurting themselves. But while Americans are suffering due to increasing prescription drug prices, pharmaceutical companies are indulging. In the article, The Pharmaceutical Industry, David Belk described how pharmaceutical companies are profiting off struggling Americans who don't have health insurance on their medications. He explains how pharmaceutical companies told people that they need to pay higher prices for patent medications so that they have enough money to develop better drugs and research. With this information, Belk did a study to find how the revenue is being spent on the top 13 pharmaceutical corporations. Over the course of the 7 years the study showed, the combined total revenue for all the 13 companies was about $3.27 trillion. The combined total profits for these companies was about $646 billion. The combined total money spent on research was $549 billion, and the total amount they spent on marketing was about 60% more than what they spent on research, $895 billion. The study revealed that most of the revenue was being spent on things such as medication ads instead of the research that they had stated. The pharmaceutical companies have granted Americans a broken promise. Without the help of insurance, Americans are paying the pharmaceutical industry unneeded billions of dollars that the companies are profiting off of. As many Americans struggle with paying for prescription medications, one individual was brave enough to share her story. In the article, Accessing Healthcare is a Constant Struggle for My Family, a young woman explains her struggle with health insurance on her medications. Rochelle explains she has a disease that deforms her hands and feet and how her son is also a special needs patient. She claims, although I have worked full-time for over 20 years, our medications are so expensive that I must choose between my son receiving his treatment or myself. Ultimately, that is no choice at all. My child always comes first. She goes into detail about how she has to stop taking her medications at times to help her son. Without her medications, she struggles with the mobility of her hands. She then expresses how it is unacceptable that insurance doesn't cover all her medications and how it is affecting her health, her son, and even her job. Many Americans have similar stories like Rochelle's, and numerous Americans are suffering. Overall, prescription medications that are not being covered or are not being fully covered by insurance is causing a massive epidemic in America. My Nadolol is a huge part of my life, and I technically could not function without it. In America, not only are people suffering to pay for their medications like Rochelle, but the pharmaceutical industry is profiting off Americans. Ultimately, Americans are becoming more damaged, and their health is continuously declining. Imagine a world where all medications were covered by insurance and every person could be equally healthy together.